As the dust settles over Gaza, the world watches with bated breath. A ceasefire holds, but for how long? With competing interests, unresolved tensions, and a landscape scarred by war, the path to lasting peace remains uncertain. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio declined to say whether Israel would need US permission to renew fighting against Hamas in Gaza if the group continues to pose a threat, whilst emphasizing that the US ceasefire plan has broad regional support and is the best and only plan. On October 24th, Rubio, while on his visit to Israel, was asked at a press conference if Israel could resume fighting Hamas independently should the group rearm or regroup. Rubio said that,
"If Hamas refuses to demilitarize, it'll be a violation of the agreement, and that'll have to be enforced. I'm not going to get into the mechanisms by which it is going to be enforced, but it'll have to be enforced." In response to another question on Hamas disarmament, Rubio stressed that Israel had stood firm on its commitment for peace, and now Hamas must follow suit. Rubio was addressing the press at the Israel Civil Military Coordination Center in southern Israel, which oversees the ceasefire in Gaza. He added that implementing the plan was not going to be a linear journey. "There's going to be ups and downs and twists and turns," Rubio reiterated. "This is a deal, and a deal requires conditions to be met. Israel has met their commitments. They're standing at the yellow line, and that is contingent upon the demilitarization."
Rubio noted that Hamas disarmament and the demilitarization of Gaza under the second phase of the deal is a long-term project, but added that the United States wanted to help create the conditions here so that people in Gaza don't have to be terrorized by Hamas and, in fact, have lives, jobs, businesses, and a better future. Rubio called coordinating the ceasefire in Gaza a historic mission, saying Washington and its partners are working to sustain the truce, deliver aid, and prepare for the International Stabilisation Force, a multinational peacekeeping force, to enter the territory. Rubio and the US have been adamant that Netanyahu would hold his end of the deal. Not everyone shares the same optimism about Israel upholding the ceasefire, though. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan said that the United States and others must do more to push Israel to stop violating the Gaza ceasefire agreement, including the possible use of sanctions or halting arms sales. According to an official readout of his remarks to reporters aboard a return flight from Oman, Erdoğan said that the Palestinian militant group Hamas was abiding by the agreement.
"As Turkey, we are doing our utmost for the ceasefire to be secured. The Hamas side is abiding by the ceasefire. In fact, it is openly stating its commitment to this. Israel, meanwhile, is continuing to violate the ceasefire."
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this week hinted at his opposition to any role for Turkish security forces in the Gaza Strip. Relations between the two countries have collapsed amid the war in Gaza, as Erdogan has praised Hamas and accused Israel of genocide, a charge it adamantly denies. Now, as efforts are underway to assemble a multinational force to oversee security in post-war Gaza, the prospect of a role for Turkey in the territory has raised concerns in Israel. Erdogan says his country can give any form of support to Gaza as discussions continue over the makeup of an international force meant, under the terms of the recent ceasefire, to oversee security in the territory after an IDF withdrawal. Ankara has said that it would join a task force to oversee the implementation of the ceasefire, that its armed forces could serve in a military or civilian capacity as needed, and that it will play an active role in the reconstruction of the enclave.
Getting Gaza back on its feet will likely take years. There's a construction period and a revitalization period. Turkey has an important duty in both construction and revitalization. Of course, this will be discussed and debated together with the Gulf states, starting with the United States, and we will decide on the steps to take on this issue.
Erdoğan reiterated the call for Gulf countries to now take action on financing efforts to rebuild Gaza, saying nobody could single-handedly complete this task. However, as of now, the task of rebuilding Gaza seems a long and arduous journey. Clearing the surface of Gaza of unexploded ordnance will likely take between 20 to 30 years, according to an official with aid group Humanity and Inclusion, describing the enclave as a horrific, unmapped minefield. More than 53 people have been killed and hundreds injured by lethal remnants from the 2-year Israel-Hamas war, according to a UN-led database, which is thought by aid groups to be a huge underestimate. A US-brokered ceasefire this month has raised hopes that the huge task of removing them from among millions of tons of rubble can begin. Nick Orr, an explosive ordnance disposal expert at Humanity and Inclusion, compared the situation in Gaza with British cities after World War II and said the clearance was going to take decades.
If you're looking at a full clearance, it's never happening, it's subterranean. We will find it for generations to come. Surface clearance, now that's something that's attainable within a generation, I think 20 to 30 years. If there is going to be any kind of future inside of Gaza, there needs to be an enabling security force that allows humanitarians to work.
Orr, who went to Gaza several times during the conflict, is part of his organization's 7-person team that will begin identifying war remnants there in essential infrastructure like hospitals and bakeries next week. For now, however, aid groups like his have not been given blanket Israeli permission to start work on removing and destroying the ordnance, nor to import the required equipment. While the ceasefire may have silenced the guns, Gaza's nightmare is far from over. Beneath the rubble lies a generation of hidden death. Above ground, nations clash over who controls its future. As aid workers risk their lives and diplomats trade warnings, one question haunts the Strip. Can peace truly take root in such poisoned soil?